Welcome back to this channel. In today's video, we're going to create this number range checking program with JavaScript. Now, the program will accept user input and tell you whether the number or the input you've entered is within the ranges of 10 to 50 inclusive, or it's below it, or it's above it. So if you enter a number that is within the range, let's say 20, and you hit on the check button, it will tell you that the number is within the range. What if you enter a number that is below, let's say 5? You press the check button, it will tell you that the number is below the range. What if you enter something that is above, let's say 60? It will tell you that the number is above the range. And finally, what if you enter something that is not a number, let's say AAA? It will tell you to enter a valid number. And we're going to be doing all this with just some few lines of JavaScript code. So before we get into it, why don't you just hit the subscribe button and support the channel? That's the least you can do. And all right, let's get into it. In the HTML document, we have the markup and structure for the box. So first of all, we have a containing div. And inside the containing div, we'll have an h1 element that will be the header for the box. An input element where we accept the user input, where the user will type a number, a button to submit this number, and a paragraph element to display the results or the message of the number. And that's all for the markup. So the CSS file will contain some declarations and styles for our markup. And when you come below here, we want to classify the kind of messages that appear when you click on the check button. So if you enter something that is not a number, or you leave the input field empty and press the check button or click on the check button, the message that will appear will be classified as an error message and will have a red color. Now, what if you enter something that is below the range or above the range? So the message that will appear will be classified as a warning message and will have an orange color. And finally, when you enter a number that is within the range, the message will be classified as a success message and will have a green color. And we will append these class names to the results paragraph using JavaScript. Now let's add some functionality to our program. So the first thing we will do is to set the maximum and minimum values for the range. And since these values will be constant, we use the const to declare and assign them. So our minimum value should be 10 and our maximum value should be 50. So the next thing we will do is to add an event listener to the button when we click on it. So we get the ID name of the button, which is check button, and then you access it in the JavaScript. So document.getElement by the ID, and the ID name is check button, and we add an event listener to it. And the event this time is click. So when the button gets clicked, we execute some function, and we use an arrow function for simplicity. So now when you click on the button, we first get the input field. We first get the value inside the input field. We trim it and we assign it to a variable input. And this input should not change, so we use a const to declare it. Next thing is to access the results paragraph and assign it to a value or a variable of results. Now next, we will clear the previous classes by changing the class names of our results paragraph to an empty string. So we assume that there is a class. We assume we've given our results paragraph a class name, and then we change it to an empty string for now. Now, if we click on the button, what if the input is not a valid number? So if the input is strictly equal to an empty string, that is when the input field is empty and we submit, or so we use the or logical operator, or if the input is not a number, we update the text content of the result paragraph to please enter a valid number. And now we assign the class name of error, which has a red color, to the results paragraph. So the text will have a red color, and then return the function to stop it because we now have executed the function. So let's check and see if we enter an invalid number, we have this message display in red color, or if we leave the input field empty and submit, we have the same thing happening. Now, what if the input is now a valid number? So we get the input and typecast it into a number because when you accept user input, it's a string. So we typecast it into a number and assign it to the number variable. So if the number is less than the minimum, that is, if the number is less than 10, we update the text content of the result paragraph to the number is below the range, the minimum and the maximum. And then we append the class name of warning to the results paragraph so that the warning can have an orange color, just as we saw earlier. So we enter a number below 10, and this is what we have. Now, else if the number is, what if the number is greater than the maximum, which is the number is greater than 50? So else if the number is greater than the max, we update the text content of the results paragraph to the number is above the range. And then we append the warning class to the results paragraph. Now, what if the number is now within the range? Else, we set the text content of the result field or the result paragraph so the number is within the range of the minimum and the maximum. And we append the success class name to the result paragraph so that the text will have a green color. And this is what we have over here. So if you enter a number that is below the range, we'll have this message pop up in orange color. Within the range, we have this message pop up in green color. Above the range, we'll have this message pop up in orange color too because it's still a warning. And what if we enter an invalid number, like a letter or something? So enter a valid number. And if you leave it empty and submit, you have the same enter a valid number pop up. So yeah, that's how to create a number range checker with just JavaScript.